Phil Rogers coming up. Two sons fulfill a dying man's request, and a member of the greatest generation goes back to Pearl Harbor for the last time.
Special report, a family's journey, an emotional trip to Pearl Harbor to honor a dying father's final wish. NBC5's Phil Rogers here with the story. Phil?
Mark, for the most part, they were just kids who stood blinking in disbelief at those planes roaring out of a sunny sky on a Sunday morning 59 years ago. But this week, one of those kids goes back to Pearl Harbor for the last time.
Hello, NBC. Hello, NBC. We have witnessed this morning the severe bombing of Pearl Harbor by enemy planes.
It was the day where sights and sounds, even the words, were indelibly etched in a nation's memory for all time.
A date which will live in infamy.
A day where a young sailor not long out of Great Lakes saw his life change forever.
He recalls looking up and seeing the rear gunner in one of these planes. He could see the guy's face, and at the same time he's shooting at him with a rifle.
Clarence Miller, his friends knew him as CJ, was just 20 years old that day, watching in horror from the deck of the USS Ramsey as the terror unfolded.
He told us they couldn't believe at first what was happening, and then they saw the planes with the red circles, and they knew that this was not any kind of practice or anything. They were actually being attacked.
Miller survived that day and the war, came back to the United States, married and raised a family. But when he died this year at the age of 78, there was one piece of unfinished business. C.J. Miller had told his family he wanted to rejoin the boys who didn't come home from Pearl Harbor.
The Arizona has over 1,000 men entombed in it, and he's a part of that.
C.J. Miller knew all too well the staggering losses of that day. Tomorrow morning, Rick and Bob Miller will board a plane for Honolulu. And on Thursday, the 59th anniversary of the attack, they will spread their father's ashes on the waters of Pearl Harbor.
I couldn't think of doing anything else except fulfilling that wish for him.
We'd always talked about, you know, if something should ever happen to him, hey, this is where he wants to be.
Bob and Rick Miller agree that their father was a member of what has become known as the greatest generation. The members of that generation are slowly going away, and this one is finally going where, in a way, he always felt he belonged. Mark and Allison, it's going to be quite a day.
Thank you for sharing that story, Phil.
A moving ceremony to commemorate one of the darkest chapters in American history.
59 years ago today, this battle drew our country into the Second World War. Well, decades later, the healing continues. Good evening. Those who perished during the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor are honored here each year.
And those who have survived that battle earn the right, if they choose, to rest here forever. And that was what brought two mainland families here for the ceremony today, to scatter their father's ashes at sea into the waters they fought for decades ago. KGMB9's Paul Drews has the story of a Chicago family who came to fulfill a soldier's last wish.
Gun is made, Chief Petty Officer Clarence Miller arriving.
For much of the year, Bob Miller and his brother Rick have been preparing for their father's final boat ride, a short trip that will carry Clarence Miller's ashes close to the spot where he served 59 years ago when Pearl Harbor was attacked.
To bring him back here to be with the shipmates of his that didn't make it out of here that day was probably a very fitting end to his life and the career he had in the Navy.
That career finishes here, near the Arizona Memorial, as Miller's ashes fall into the water where many of his shipmates and friends lost their lives.
It was just a great way to honor a great man, and I was lucky enough to share his memories and keep his memory alive.
That memory includes sharing their father's stories with other survivors, even their dad's old shipmates. They say it helps to ease the pain of this emotional memorial service.
For both of us here, we kind of held each other up, and it was when they started playing taps out there that really started to get to us. And but I think we made it through okay, and we're very happy that we were able to do this for him.
That makes it even more emotional that there's people we don't even know, and they're doing all this for us, and for someone that they didn't even know, but they know what he went through and what he meant, and he was part of history.
Good way to bring closure to his life, and as a son to father obligation. That's all. I couldn't do any better than that. I think he would have said, "Son, it's the right thing to do."
Paul Drews, KGMB 9 News.
Now, the Millers were one of 2 families who scattered ashes at Pearl Harbor this afternoon.
Hawaii, islands of incomparable beauty, where the locals greet each other with the phrase, "Another day in paradise." One spot here draws more visitors than any other. The Hawaiian natives call it Waiamomi, which means water of pearl. We know it as Pearl Harbor. Since 1940, this has been the home of the United States Navy's Pacific Fleet, and it is a place of stark contrasts. Beyond the brightest sunlit beaches lie the darkest days in memory. It is a place of unparalleled beauty and unmatched emotions. Many secrets hidden here are off limits. Security is the reason, so tourists don't get to see them, unless they're watching now. Because tonight we have special clearance with full access to places you can't go, from the fleet's secret communication center to private ceremonies honoring Pearl Harbor heroes. You know Pearl Harbor's most famous memorial will take you to another few even know about. And from deep inside a mountain,
That sense of history does get installed early on.
it's mid-afternoon, the 7th of December, 59 years after that fatal day in 1941.
May he rest in peace. Amen.
A Pearl Harbor survivor is laid to rest in a private ceremony with full military honors beside his fallen comrades. It is one of several such ceremonies that the Navy will perform this day and throughout the year for veterans wishing to be returned to the scene of the event that in many ways shaped their lives.
What Pearl Harbor can symbolize to those of us that study it is the amazing resiliency of the United States Navy and the country as a whole. Pearl Harbor mobilized us like no other event. We had millions of men and women volunteer from every ethnic group to preserve democracy. So this Pearl Harbor event is really the beginning of modern America. We were never the same after that, and the things that were invented brought about vast changes, not only to the country as a whole, but to minorities, to women. It really was a watershed of history.
Through the years of their lives, the survivors never forgot this day, their place in history, or their shipmates. And those that have followed and served will always remember the battle in paradise, Pearl Harbor. And so too should we.